Hey, and welcome to Sunshine State of Mind. I'm Vanessa Montgomery, astrologer from Astro All-Stars, author of Star Power, a simple guide to astrology for the modern mystic. And today I have for you a very special guest of mine, Marlton. She's a spiritual guide and a catalyst. Her mission is to help others realize their truth, gain clarity, and better navigate the human experience. Martha stems from a lineage of Curanderas on her paternal side and psychic intuitives on her maternal side, with values rooted from the same source, earth and light. Her practice fuses the teachings of shamanism, metaphysics, and astrology, all guided by the Akashic Records. Martha's spiritual philosophy urges us to step into neutrality and cultivate a healthy discernment so that we can create our own inner truth. So, welcome, Martha. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great. I'm so curious to delve into all of this with you, especially your background. So, I wanted to start off actually, though, with synchronicity because I love your 1111 hat.
Yeah.
It's something that more people are becoming aware of, learning to recognize signs and symbols. So,
Mhm.
what's your take on synchronicity and how do you use it?
Yeah, well, so, the number sequences, I think what happens is when you're on the path and you're ready to awaken, what is your guides will send you those sequences, right? I mean, it's a lot of different things. Sequences, like songs, for me, it's a big, they send me songs a lot of times. But I think what'll happen is your number will pop up and that'll be your specific number. Like for me, it was always 1111.
Mm,
I have a friend, it's 444. I mean,
yeah.
every time she looks on the clock, 333. So I think it's just learning to listen to those,
And
yeah, I mean,
do you feel like you just know what it means, or do you because something I'll do is I'll just, if I notice something, I'll then think, well, what was I just thinking about then? It's like a little like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think there's, you can look up the angel numbers, right? There's a lot of different descriptions, and then numerology plays into it. But I
Mm.
mean, how I use it is I'm the same way. It's like I'll see 1111. It's always whatever I'm thinking about, or I'll get downloaded, and a message or a song. So
Yeah.
yeah, for me, it's just like remembering what space you're in at that time.
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
say also, I never really noticed 1111, but then of course everyone's like talking about 1111. So then every time I'll just happen to look at the clock at 1111. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always thought you can sort of program what something means to you and choose your special thing so that you having that dialogue, I guess, with your unconscious mind somehow.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing
and
how
so
it
for me with
works.
the hat, I wear this hat all the time, but today when I was hiking, people always like see the letters. And so I always kind of just consciously make, a note that whoever sees it, like they'll get a trigger or
That's
an awakening.
great.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So you put an intention in it. I like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your history. So, what is a curandera for people that don't know? I don't know much about that either.
Yeah, it's my on my dad's side, they come from Mexico. So
Mhm.
it's basically a shaman. So but they mixed Catholicism with shamanism. So, when the Spaniards invaded them,
Yeah,
they had to hide, their rituals, and so they mixed it together with Catholicism. So it's very interesting. I mean, it's very similar to a lot of the Peruvian shamanism, but I just think it's interesting because they mix in a lot of the saints. So it's like the ritual are kind of mixed together.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. And on your mother's side, psychic intuitives.
Yeah, so my mom, both sides, my dad and my mom both have the gift, and my grandmother. So it's funny, I look and I see it comes from both sides. And I think I'm kind of here to be a bridge, because I think a lot of times, especially with
Mm,
shamanism, people will say like, you can't be a shaman because you're not, indigenous or whatever. And I always say it's like all of us come from a shamanic background, right?
that's
It's called
right. Yeah.
animism. So it's like I feel like I'm here to kind of be a bridge, and bridge the two.
Yep, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
I guess like develop it so that it can be used in a modern way, in a modern world and understood. Like I guess it's creating a new language in a way. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing you talked about was Akashic Records.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
So, my mom always had all those Edgar Casey books. I don't know if you remember that they used to do these little like paperbacks, and it would be like, Edgar Casey on reincarnation or
Yeah,
Edgar Casey.
like they do their lectures, like they write out their lectures. Is
Yeah.
that what they are?
Yeah, yeah. So my mom had those books all over the house. And so I knew what they were, but um, I had gone to New Mexico. Long story short, I went to New Mexico and had this event happen in this sweat lodge with a shaman. And someone was like, oh, sorry, my dog. My dog has this weird reverse cough that she does.
So
Um,
everyone is the dog.
yeah, it's my dog. It's fine. But anyways, I met this guy was like, you need to contact this woman. She teaches the Akashic Records. And so it's so funny. Like I did a class with her, and this was right around the time I started seeing the 1111, And so I just kept getting this hit that I need to do this class, need to do this class. Well,
Yeah.
prior to the class, I started to see people's like past lives. Like a friend of mine was talking about work and his boss, and all of a sudden they started showing me in my mind's eye like his past life and how it connects
Wow.
to this life. And so I took that as a sign I needed to take the class. When I get into the class, she had named our class the 1111 Lightworkers. And the funny thing is, like 10 other people that's when the 1111 came in for them. So, going back to the synchronicities, like they'll show
Yeah.
you, right? If you listen to the signs, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And so that was like your awakening, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it had kind of started before that, but I think that was kind of what allowed me to really tap into all my clairs, you
And do you
know?
think that because on both sides of your family, like I guess this thing is, or this kind of way of knowing is acceptable in your family, so you're more likely to be curious about it than say push it away like so many people do?
Yeah, I mean, so this narrative has been with me my whole childhood. But
Mm.
it's funny. I tend to be more of a left brain thinker, and I just thought it was not that I don't know. I didn't really believe it. But, it kind of goes back to that. You have to have a personal experience with it, right? Someone can tell you like, oh, I could do psychic readings, or I can, read people's auras or whatever it is. But until you have like a personal experience with it, it's really hard to grasp it, right? So,
Yeah. So what did
yeah,
you
I
do
think,
with the earlier experiences? Like you said, a few things had happened before. Like, can you tell us about that? Because I think it's, a lot of us often have, other sort of subtle intel, and we just dismiss it. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
what was yours like?
like when I was I used to have these dreams. I know now that I was going into the Akashic Record. So I would have this recurring dream where I would go down in this library and I would touch all the spines of the book, and I could read it in like an instant.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I would go there all the time. I know now I was going into the records when I was a kid, right? And then the song. So right now, like a lot of times they'll give me, so when I'm in a reading, a lot of times they'll just download a whole song because the lyrics are everything that they need me to tell the client. And it's just easier for them to convey that versus like download, you know what I mean? So as a kid, they would always download those songs. Like, you'd be, I don't know, I'd be in the car or a song would come on the radio, or I'd be on a walk and they would download a song and I'd go and read the lyrics, and it's like everything that I need, I really needed at that moment.
Oh wow,
Right.
that's amazing. And I'll just
Yeah.
say that Martha is a Gemini, and I think it's really interesting that you would go into this place with all these books and touch the spines.
Yeah.
That's so, yeah, that's, because Gemini is so about the word and the knowledge. And
Totally.
yeah, so
Yeah.
can you tell me a bit more about the Akashic Records and what that's all about?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Akashic Records are on the etheric realm. And so the way I always like to explain it, it's your, people say it's a book, like, everyone says it's a library. It's really, I mean, it depends. Everyone experiences it differently. I
Mm,
personally experience it as a library. That's just
mm.
because I'm more visual,
Yeah.
in my mind, I see a library. But essentially it's a record of, it's kind of almost like a ticker tape of your life. So every thought, feeling, emotion that you're having, it's recorded, on the etheric realm. And so I can
Mm.
go into people's records and help.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the guides will come in, and we can go in there and see uh what, like what crossroad they're at, you know
Yeah.
um So yeah, and so it's for every lifetime. So a lot of people want to come in because they're interested in past lives. And for me personally, like the guides that I work with, they're really not interested in that unless it correlates to something that's happening in your current life. Like my
Yeah.
friend, how he was like complaining about his boss, and they brought in that piece. That's the only way they're really interested in it. But I mean, you can glean all kinds of information, planets, universes, all kinds of stuff,
Everything. That's amazing.
everything. Yeah.
And so how are you learning more about that? How are you developing that?
The Akashic Records.
Yeah, like learning to
Yeah.
work with those. How are you navigating that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I first started off doing coaching, I guess I should back up. So when I started on this path, I was doing HR. So I did higher ed work and human resources work for a long time. And I was looking for a new job. It's so funny how astrology ties into this. I was looking for a new job. I found this career coach because I was like, okay, if I take this next job I just want to be really like purposeful about it, right?
Mm.
So she does career coaching, but she also mixes your astrology, but only your workhouses.
Yep.
So I do this whole session with her, and she does my chart, and basically she comes back and she says, "You're here to connect to spirit and then help other people connect to spirit." And I was like, "No, I'm looking for an HR job. Like I don't know what you're talking about." And we laugh about it now because that's exactly what it is, you know. And so,
Yep.
but it's been this slow transition of like I started off doing career coaching when I first started, you know, because that I did that, you know, at a university level, and then the HR kind of just made sense. But as the years progressed, I just kept like evolving into what it is with the records, you know. But
Yeah.
what I'm finding though is it ties in because I feel like now I'm able to pinpoint people's purpose. So a lot of people like, it's funny because the guides will send me people that, you know, going back
Mm.
to like energy and synchronicity, they'll send me people, and you know they're on the precipice of being able to step into listening to their clairs, right, listening to
Yep.
their inner knowing, and I'm at this point where I'm able to kind of activate them in a way
Wow.
and
Yep.
like pinpoint their purpose. So
Mm.
it's funny because the you know the career coaching, the life
Yeah.
purpose, it's all tying together, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
And oh, what was I going to say about that? Oh, I've forgotten now. But I will ask, the other thing I wanted to go into, I might remember that one, is can you talk more about the bridges to knowing like the different clairs out for people that maybe are picking up on things, but they don't really know what they are, and perhaps how to amplify them and develop their relationship with whatever that, do you call it like a bridge?
Yeah, yeah. So the clairs, you know, it's funny because I think on social media, people will be like, oh, I'm an empath, or empaths be like, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, we're all empaths, right? Like
Yeah,
we're
I
all
agree.
wired, right? Like we're wired to use these skills. It's just
Yep.
that we've forgotten, you
Yeah.
know? So I think like, so this is one thing that the guides have had me teaching people. I do this right before each session. So I'll sync our breath up. It's a very shamanic way of connecting to the earth and the ether, right? So it's like the divine masculine, the divine feminine. So
Yeah.
they're having me bring all that energy into the heart space. And so what they're having me tell clients is like doing that twice a day can keep you into your truth, your
Mm.
intuition. So I think that's something that if you practice that like twice a day, you know, once in the morning, once at night before you go to bed, I think that will really heighten it up. And again, it goes back to just listening to the signs, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, well, gut react, like the solar plexus, right? Like the gut reaction. People say, you know, oh, like, you know, I just knew in my gut. Like
Yes.
that's your intuition trying to tell you, right? Like you need
Yes.
to listen to something happening here, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or the, you know, the signs, the music. This is another one is like you'll be having a conversation. This happens to me a lot. I'll be somewhere and someone else is saying a conversation, and like whatever
Yes.
they're saying, right? It's like meant for you. And
Yeah.
if you listen, it's there. And so, yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, it's just feeling into it and listening.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I like them. There's a Buddhist ex monk that his thing that I repeat quite a lot is first thought, best thought. It's like the first thought is from one of those bridges, like your stomach or your heart intelligence, you know. And if people want to go check out the Heart Math Institute, they give a lot of statistics on that,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I will navigate things often. It's like, hang on, but what was my first thought before my conscious brain starts
Yeah.
trying to work it out. And
Yeah.
of course, it is always correct. It is 100% correct. And the heart doesn't, the heart's intelligence, and I'd say the gut, they know the truth and the reality. But your brain, your conscious mind doesn't. All it can do is kind of work with what it's got. So it's got to
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, the first reaction is the soul, right? And then the second reaction is your ego, right? Because the ego wants to go, oh, well, I don't know, is that, then you start like second guessing it. But yeah, it's
that's
like,
right. And it
yeah, that's,
wants, it's your conscious ego, so it wants you to fit in, it wants to you to survive in, by all means, by fitting into the group, what's acceptable. But what's acceptable might not be the truth or right for you. So there is that. And this is where I bring in being a Gemini again as well, because Gemini is like two, like all the air signs are two symbols,
yeah,
and it's equal listening as well as talking. And I think that that internal conversation with yourself, it's so much about listening. And most of us have been trained not to listen to even ourselves. So I think it's a really interesting path. And part of so many women waking up is it's that Gemini is equal yin and yang. It's like the heartbeat that needs to pump in and then release. It's equal, ebb and flow. And again, it's that receptive listening, and then external communication, or that external curiosity to then ask clarifying questions, or it's a certain loop. And I think it's that I'm actually putting together a project with another Gemini friend on the whole thing. So I think it's so fascinating, and people don't really look into it that much. With Mercury ruling Gemini can go, has all access pass to all realms, and I see that as, these three worlds. There's like, neurons in your heart and your gut and your brain, and they all have a highway to each other. So that's the Gemini thing. And it's like this whole season, we're currently in Gemini season, and the standout thing that's coming up is like, listen, listen, listen. And usually we think of Gemini as like talking and the chatterbox and like spreading information, which it is, but that listening side, that yin receptive side, is really getting highlighted this season more than I've ever really noticed before. And so I think that's really interesting. So in terms of the clairs, can you talk a little bit more about like the different ones? Like some people hear words, don't they? And some will just see a vision, and some will
yeah,
feel other people's emotions perhaps. And can you talk a bit
yeah.
more about yours?
So let's see. I would say so there's what clairaudience, right, is hearing, clairvoyance, clairsentience. There's one more. There's four. I always get mixed up on the But so yeah, it's like what would it be? So it's clairsentience, clairvoyance,
A
clairaudience,
feeling, a kinetic
claircognizance, clairknowing,
cognizance. That's
yeah.
it.
So yeah, claircognizance is just knowing, like you just like, almost like you're feeling into your solar plexus, your gut, right? You just you meet somebody and it's like right away, you're just like, you either like them or you don't, right?
Yes.
So it's like that, where you just kind of, it's like your intuition. Like claircognizant. So for me, so that's my main clair, because when I go into the records, like I said, I see a library. So I
Yeah.
show up in a waiting room, the guides pick me up, I open up to this library. And so they'll download to me like audible things, like the songs, like they'll download things like that. And then they'll show me visuals. So but it's looking with your third eye.
Yep.
So yeah. And what do we say? Claircognizance, audience,
Sentience. So you
sentience.
see the
Yeah,
books, you see the
yeah.
library.
Feeling. So that's the other thing, is like, you'll like, oh, like spirit bumps. Do you ever get those when someone says something and you get goosebumps? Like my friend always goes, oh, it's spirit bumps. But
Yes. Yes.
yeah, that's like
Yeah,
when you just
actually.
feel it, right? That happens a lot. Like someone will say something and it's like, I'll just feel it in my body. And it's like, that's a yes. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Listen to it.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. I always
Yeah.
look for that expansive upward shift or contracting downward. It's like a clear yes or a clear no,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
clear just don't make a decision yet, find out more.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I think going back to like how sometimes women, we won't listen to ourselves. Like, that took me a long time to get into
Yes.
that, space where it's like, okay, you just know, right?
Yeah,
And you just
absolutely.
feel into it. And it's like, it's either a yes or a no. So I think that's a clear that like all of us need to, I mean, all of them, but that in particular is like so helpful because,
Yeah.
you
You
know,
know, there's a
you just
book called,
know.
there's a book on, by an Australian writer actually, that's, I think it came out last year, called You Already Know. And it's about, I guess, her journey of being a psychic medium and things like that. And I just think the title is brilliant. You already know. You do,
Yeah.
we know. And it's, yeah, we've certainly been trained, I guess, socialized to give, defer to someone else and not to ourselves, which is crazy because only we know for ourselves. So that's, I think that's the number one, or one of the number one hurdles or parts of the journey to re-embrace.
Yeah.
I was going to mention too about that. Yeah, when you're listening to, you're not listening to a conversation, but suddenly the dial goes up before you didn't even notice it around you. And then you just hear so clearly, like the dial goes up on the volume and you hear this one sentence or word, and it's amazing. And same with songs, like particularly in times of when you're in a bit of a crisis, or say it's an end of a relationship, or you're looking for direction maybe with your life path or your career, and all of a sudden, yeah, the words in certain songs just, again, you weren't even, it's like it was dialed down, and then this one sentence or word comes up so loud and clear. And for me, when I've been avoiding the truth because I want the fantasy, it happens all the time and I'm trying to ignore it, and it just keeps dialing up right in my face, and it really, like, it hits you. You can feel it and you can hear it. And I think that happens for most of us. And it's just, it's having the confidence to just own it and go, yep, and not seek that external validation. Just, I think that you're in flow and you are really in charge of your life once you can hit that point and just be very decisive and, yeah, like boss up basically for yourself.
Yeah.
Which leads me to, you were saying about people looking for direction. That's what I've found. Oh, like the purpose, like life purpose and direction. It's like in astrology, really the sun, I would say, how do I shine? And that's what, I don't know if a lot of people are getting that, but that's what I'm getting mostly. It's not people asking about relationships, or it's more like, what is my purpose? What is the best way for me to shine? And career, of course, is really important because it's purposeful, like more vocation, not just a job. Yeah, how can I best be in this world? So that's interesting. And of course, most of my clients are women, or particularly younger women, millennials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
this,
I wish that's the
how do
thing.
I
I wish I
shine?
would have known, more about astrology when I was younger, because I just feel like your chart, it's all there.
It's
It's
all
really
there.
it's all there. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. And then just to have someone encourage that sun, that shine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you're telling
yeah,
me, so go do it.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. It's so simple.
Mhm.
What else was I going to go to? Oh, so you are at the crossroads of moving 100% into your business full time. And I think that, there's a lot of people in that position. So what's your thoughts around that? And did you have any hesitations? Like, what is it that what's helping you move into there, just in terms of your mindset?
Yeah, well, it's been it's been 4 years, like I said, of morphing. When I first started off, it was like career coaching and like life purpose. And then,
Mm,
then I delved into my shamanism past, and now it's like mixing. I really didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was here to teach until just this year. And the funny thing is I remember having this Reiki session, and it was like the first time like my spirit animal came out, like this big jaguar. And,
oh,
kind of
wow.
when they told me, you are here to be the shaman. And they said, you're going through an awakening. It's going to be fast and slow. It's going to be 4 years, because it was like so frustrating. Because sometimes you just don't know. It's a journey, right? Like you want to know, right, in the beginning, like, what am I here to do? And sometimes you have to live into it. So for me, that's kind of what happened. I had to live into it. And it's just this year that I know, okay, again, I'm here to bridge all these different pieces together, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah. But I think um, I don't know, my Aries moon, like when I first started doing the coaching thing, I did it all. I did B school the same year. I did my coaching credentials the same. I just did everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just how I am. Like I
Forged
like to
in.
just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think just also knowing that it's a process. You know what I mean? Like, you take steps, and you might find out like certain things aren't for you. And So just not getting discouraged on the path, for me, God, 4 years, it just, every year I just be like, what is this? Like, what am I here doing? And I just had to wait for it to unfold.
Yeah. Well, I think when I've seen people, they're on their path, and, it's taken me, I've been doing astrology for so long, and I couldn't have done what I do now before, because it does take the experience for me anyway. And astrology is a little bit like that. You don't really have, it's all just conceptual from a book until you start observing and watching it and living it and embodying it, and it makes more sense. And I see other people that are just on their path, whether they're a musician or whatever it is, and it's taking them a long time, but had they sort of made it earlier, honestly, they weren't ready. And because they've had to push through and just do the work and do the grind, they are getting so good at what they're doing. So when their time comes, they're going to be ready. They definitely weren't ready before. They're so much better now. Like I've got a friend that's doing music, and she's just so much better now. And it's starting to roll a little bit more. Obviously, it's like, if you don't want this, you're not going to keep going. It's almost that as well. It's like that Saturn Capricorn thing, like you have to climb the hill to get to the top of the mountain, but by the time you're at the top of the mountain, you are so strong and robust and great at climbing.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just think it's a bit of that. Your time is your time, and you can't make it happen until the time is right. So it's that, again, comes back to yourself. I think it's your trust and belief in yourself, and if you're doing it for that higher purpose, you'll keep at it. Like for me, I don't do this for this is a business for me, and this is how I support myself, but that's not my end game. Like that's not what I pin my star to. It's like, this is a vehicle for the way that I want to contribute to individuals and the world. Like it's my humanitarian cause, but the vehicle I love, it's so interesting, and I do it anyway for free all the time. Yeah, that's what I have to say about, because I think these days people see Instagram and it looks like some people are getting success really quickly, but there's that saying that, it's taken me a lifetime to be an overnight success.
Yeah. It doesn't happen
Way.
overnight, but we want it to, you want it to happen overnight. But
You
yeah,
wouldn't be ready. You would miss out on, like, if you're not into the journey, you're not in the right thing. I think the journey is the most of it. That's your life. So you have to be enjoying that. And yeah, I think it comes when it comes. And it's, and that's in the transits with astrology too. You can often see when something big happens, it's like a certain transit in your chart. So if you've already done the work, you're ready for it. But if you haven't, and you haven't had that belief in yourself and faith, the Jupiter stuff, I guess, and done the hard work, the Saturn, you can't make the most of that opportunity. Like it's kind of been wasted. So yeah, I think everything is in its time, and everything else is just like your dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, so what are you offering people now? Like, where are you at now? You're obviously like taking people to coach and help. Are you mentoring people to get in touch with those gifts and teaching them?
Yeah. So right now I've been doing readings for a while now, and then I'm also doing mentoring. So I think like I said, they'll send me people that are just on the precipice, right? Like they're ready. And so I'm doing mentoring, but now I'm being called to do more group work. So I'm just in this process. Like I said, it's just this year that they've kind of told me this is what you're here teaching. So now I'm in this process of, okay, what does this look like? I definitely think it's more group work. I love the one-to-one just because I just love that.
And you've got Moon in the 7th house. So that's, that one-to-one.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I love that intimacy. So, because I like to go deep with people, but I'm realizing I want to reach more people, so I'm trying to figure out like what that looks like. Yeah, I feel like it's more group work.
And maybe I'll just say now, because you've got your son in the 9th house, which is media, podcasting, like it's,
I've been doing more. I've been trying to do more. It's one of those things where, like I said, I like the one-to-one stuff. I love the really intimate stuff, and I've kind of shied away from the social media, but I'm realizing like, I have to get out there and and
Yeah,
do more of that,
you've been quite active, which is great. I think that's activating. And it's also like you've got your North Node in the third and you are a Gemini, it's writing as well. Like maybe you'll end up putting together manuals or writing things out in books and doing things that way as well. Definitely the media, because it's the ninth and the third.
Yeah, you know what they said that when they kind of downloaded everything that I'm here to teach, they said I'm here to mix in the modern, like
Yes.
right, the modern and the ancient together. So
Yeah.
and just make it in a way where people can understand,
Well,
because
you're
sometimes
translating. So you've got
yeah,
North Node in Sag. That's, yeah, you're translating. I think that, and
yeah,
yeah, and that's what my whole mission has been as well, is translating this so people can use it, so it's useful and people can understand it, and that it fits a modern way as well.
yeah,
Times have changed and are
mhm,
changing rapidly.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Because I
yeah,
think people are interested. It's just that like either they don't have the time to go deep. I mean, I'm just nerdy. I love all this stuff, like I want to go deep with it. But yeah, I want to be able to present it to people in a way that makes sense for their life,
yeah.
you know. Um,
Well, my little antenna, my radar, trend radar, or not trend, just what people are ready for. Women are waking up, and I can really feel that interest in learning how to have faith in, yeah, your abilities to touch in with that sort of yin way of intel. Like I can feel it really strongly
mhm.
personally,
Yeah,
and to be able to integrate that into modern life more. And I know when I first met you, I was like, oh wow, you seem so, for what you're doing, that's quite woo, you're so grounded and you're so like, I guess it's the Aries. I can see the Aries moon in there. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
And you said, yeah, that's what I always get. People always say that. And I quite like that. It shows that you can just be whoever you are and you can have these gifts. You don't need to wear a turban and be like
yeah,
fluffy, but you can be that too. That's great also. You might
yeah,
have a lot of Pisces in there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell me about that, the people's response to you in that way?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, when I first awakened, when they kind of just said like, you're here to be the shaman and do all these things, I was like, oh my God, do I, how do I have to start dressing different? Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's funny. It didn't picture, I don't know what I had in my mind of like what a shaman or mystic is.
Hmm.
It just didn't fit with like who I present as, you know what I mean? But I think what it is, people meet me and the stuff I talk about is kind of out there. So I think because I just look quote unquote normal, people tell me, they're like, you look so normal. And so it's almost like makes them comfortable, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're more apt to listen. So yeah, I think you can just be quote unquote normal and still, do all of these things and tap into your clairs and listen to your
That's right.
intuition,
Because it's a natural gift, isn't it, of being a sentient, alive being on this planet.
Yeah,
Animals have it, we have it. Everyone has these gifts. They've just
yeah,
been repressed for whatever reasons.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's I guess it's breaking down stereotypes, which is really important, and normalizing things so that it's more acceptable,
Yeah.
which
Well, I
is
mean, it's
really
funny. I
important.
think speaking of it just being more mainstream, it's like, you go into an Urban Outfitters or even an Anthropology and like I've seen your book in Urban Outfit or you know what I mean? Or like tarot
The
cards and
modern mystics
crystals.
written on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's
Amazing.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I just think it's a new world. There's so much happening. There's such a wave of new on a wave of new, and it's so exciting. It's, things have been so archaic for so long. I'm glad that the change is happening so rapidly. And I
Yeah.
think the more women that, step into all of this, the better, because the more we can all usher in change together
Hmm.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just time for like the masculine, the feminine to like merge together. You know what I mean? To be more equal. Those
Yeah,
energies, right?
yeah, exactly. I just say yin and yang, like it's that heartbeat. There's
Right.
yang and then there's yin, there's like receptive, like it, and one can't dominate the other because whichever one is dominating, existing because of its ability to oppress the other,
Yeah.
just breaks the whole system down. That's a heart attack waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm really glad that you came on the show, Sunshine State of Mind, and
Yeah.
shared your thoughts with us. I really look forward to having a few more mystics and people with the woo skills that are embracing it and sharing it and training others and helping others as well to get in touch with it. And when you don't have the words for things and don't hear others' experiences, it's hard to even conceptualize how it could exist. So thank you so much. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
at this point, where can people find you if they would like to know more, or perhaps get a reading or get some coaching if they want to develop their own skills?
Yeah. So it's Phlighter. So my business name is Phlighter Ames. So it's www.phlighterames.com. And then on Instagram, it's just at Phlighter Ames.
Phlighter
Same
Ames.
thing.
Oh, and we're going to talk about, what does that mean?
Yeah. So okay. So it's funny. The business name, it was a download, right? And everyone kept telling me like, your coaching business has to be your name. And for some reason, I just knew that's not what it was.
Yep.
And it's a form of light language. So, but it's weird because if you've seen light language or hear people speak light language, it's usually different. But like my specific light language is it because it has syntax to it. I tend to draw in a more um, yang woman, right?
Yep.
So
Yes.
it's there's just purpose in it. So essentially, when someone sees the word on social media or they see my website, it's like an activation code, is what they've said. That's the
That's
only way I can explain.
interesting.
That's what they told me, and yeah, and I don't know, I just love it because it's just people usually can't pronounce it, you know.
Phlighter,
Um,
I was saying Phlighter Ames.
yeah, it's Phlighter Ames. Yeah,
Phlighter
but it's
Ames.
funny within the name, there's light and aim.
Yes.
So it's like aiming
Yes.
for the light, right? Yeah,
And
yeah.
you are a Gemini. Words are very important.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And
Yeah.
what is, since we're on the topic, what is the light language?
So light language is, people will channel it from different dimensions. You can Google it and it'll pop up. Like people will draw it. It's like these squiggly lines. And when the people channel it, it kind of just sounds like gibberish. I don't know. I mean, it's very beautiful, but what it is actually, it's higher etheric language that's they're channeling and it's coded. So
Yeah.
a lot of times it's coded for awakening.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And have those other words in it. I guess I'm
Yeah.
just, oh, we're ending up in a sec, but just that idea of, if, I guess you're sort of bypassing the conscious mind, the rational mind
Yeah.
that will block things, but the unconscious is going to hear light and aim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I
Mhm.
like it. Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
and I shall see you soon. Go check out Martha's site, phlighterames.com.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.